Sound check. 1 1 1 1 1. Check 1 2 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1. Check 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 1 2.
Good morning, members of the media. Good morning to Trinidad and Tobago who are looking at us via the World Wide Web. This morning, I would like to thank you all for joining us in this very important media conference being held by the official opposition of Trinidad and Tobago. I am Saddam Hussein, the Member of Parliament for Barataria San Juan, and with me this morning is Senator David Naked. I will deal with some of the legislative aspects of crime and the criminal justice system and solutions to the system, and Senator David Naked will speak on the social aspect of crime and some of the deterrent and mitigating factors. So as I begin, I would like to start by saying that laws in this country alone is one part of the solution. There's a bigger part of the solution which is actually fixing a broken system, which is our criminal justice system. And the United National Congress remains committed and devoted in ensuring that citizens of Trinidad and Tobago get justice. And we are right now at a very sensitive part in our nation's history where we have seen the gruesome killing, murder, kidnapping, and rape of our young people of Trinidad and Tobago. The nation is heartbroken by the recent death of Andrea Barrett. The nation is in mourning still over the death of Ashanti Riley. We still haven't forgotten Akil Chambers. We still haven't forgotten Pixie Lacan and Sean Luke. And the system, because of all of these incidents that happened, it shows how broken our system really is. Currently before the Parliament, there's the Evidence Amendment Bill 2020, a bill that has been brought by PNM government and piloted by the Attorney General. That bill brings nothing new as it incorporates existing practices and codifies parts of the common law. That bill will lead to a greater level of complexity with criminal investigations. That bill will not assist our current situation. It will not prevent persons from being killed. It will not prevent persons from being kidnapped. The system that we already operate under is not ready for those changes. So unless there's some changes with respect to the system itself, that is the court system, then this new evidence amendment bill may work. This is all but a PR exercise by the government because there must be radical changes to the operations of the court. The court already has the ability to take camera footage and CCTV evidence during criminal trials. So when the Attorney General comes to the population and says, well, look, we need this bill for evidence in terms of video footage to be admitted, well, that is absolutely wrong because it already happens in the court system. When you look at DNA is already being used in the court. So this bill does not allow for those things because it already happens in the court system. There have been criminal trials that have been completed and there are some that are ongoing where video footage and also DNA evidence is currently being used. What we have seen is that this bill will add to that greater complexity of investigations, which will in fact cause more and more objections where defense counsel and court can have a greater opportunity in getting the evidence that was collected thrown out. So you really have to examine whether or not this bill will be effective in the fight against crime. And our position at this time is that that bill will not assist. You have to fix the system first, as I said. To show you how broken the system is, you would recently learn, and the nation learned, that the state is still waiting 15 years for the analysis of DNA samples to be completed in Sean Luke's murder trial. 15 years. That is totally unacceptable. We have enough laws in this country. We have enough laws. We don't need laws to buy CCTV cameras. We don't need laws to give the police more money. We don't need laws to build more courts or hire more judges. We have enough laws. What we need is a government to do their work. That is what we need. Imagine if we had proper camera footage, we had GPS tracking, technology, aerial surveillance, how different the landscape in terms of criminal investigation, crime detection would have been. Crime detection has been at a low. Imagine if we had all of these resources, how different Trinidad and Tobago would have been. how safer our citizens would have been, how safer our young people would have been feeling in this country. The laws in this country can only be effective if they are enforced until you have a conviction. But if you don't have a conviction or the laws are not being enforced, then they mean absolutely nothing. And that is what we have seen this government do time and time again. Pass laws without any operations of the law, without any enforcement of the law. Then you hear a narrative being peddled in the public, and that is a conversation that I have seen picking up, that there must be some support and implementation of the Bail Act. Currently in Trinidad and Tobago, there is a Bail Act. There is a Bail Act that allows a judicial officer, be it a magistrate, be it a judge, to deny bail for offenses. I would also like to remind that murder, kidnapping, rape, sexual offenses are all crimes. They are illegal. Therefore, a court can in fact deny a person bail if you are charged with those offenses. What the government had proposed to do was deny a person bail for a period of 120 days automatically if you are charged with a firearm offense. With a firearm offense. Or if you have been found in the commission of any other crime with the use of a firearm. What that actually does is not fix the system, but you are fighting to keep a broken system. Why would a government who is interested in fighting crime want to pass a bill or continue a bill that continues a broken system to just to jail someone effectively for 120 days and then they're released? What we should have been fighting for is a system that allows for a trial and a conviction in 120 days. Not a temporary fix, not to just lock up someone for 120 days, but for an entire matter to finish in 120 days. That is the system that we should have been fighting for in this country. So when the government comes with their PR exercise, those are the things that the population should be calling for. Those are the things that the opposition is calling for. Fix the broken system. Then you have the Attorney General, who is now saying, well, look, we need a bail bill, but last year he released over 900 prisoners. 900 prisoners. So his policy with respect to this is inconsistent. You have had those persons inside there incarcerated who may have become hardened criminals. The experts, the criminologists will tell you that when you are in there for extended period of incarceration, especially in the remand yard, there's no rehabilitation of those persons. And then you release those 900 persons, but now is fighting for the bail bill. Well, clearly it is a very inconsistent position that the Attorney General is trying to peddle. What we need is more judges. What we need is to fix the prison system. What we need is to resource the police. What we need is to increase the detection rate in Trinidad and Tobago. We don't need to just lock up people for 120 days. We need to convict them in 120 days. That is the system that we are fighting for. Then there's another conversation that has popped up in the public domain, and I think it is right that we address this particular topic, and that deals with the death penalty. Now, the death penalty is still the law of Trinidad and Tobago. That is still the law. Any person convicted of murder is sentenced to death by hanging. That is the law of the land. In 2011, January 14th of 2011, the People's Partnership brought a particular piece of legislation to the Parliament called the Constitution Amendment Capital Offences Bill of 2011. Now, that bill proposed to categorize murder, deal with the issue of delay, where a person must be executed 5 years after the conviction, and other miscellaneous matters necessary for the re-implementation of the death penalty. There was extensive debate on this bill, and the then opposition PNM voted against the bill, causing the bill to be defeated. And what has been the PNM solution since then? Since 2011, what have they done in order to implement the law of the land? What have they done in order to ensure that persons who convict murder face the death penalty? They have done absolutely nothing. 10 years has passed, not a single new idea, a plan or a policy for the re-implementation of the death penalty. Nothing. They have all voted against that particular piece of legislation. Now, another very startling and worrisome issue that faces this country is the CCTV cameras. And I think the Trinidad Express, today's Trinidad Express in their editorial, put it very well, and I'll read. Government out of touch. The response of National Security Minister Stuart Young to Police Commissioner's disclosure that roughly half of the country's 1,800 public surveillance cameras are not working was insensitive and out of sync with a nation racked by grief and anger over crime. Just how disconnected Minister Young has become was demonstrated in Parliament on Friday by his response to UNC MP Dr. Rudal Munila's request for the timeline for getting the cameras in working order. Opting for political grandstanding laced with innuendo, he accused the MP of being obsessed with the CCTV camera systems before offering a dismissive as to how soon as possible. Were he in touch with the prevailing mood, Minister Young would have recognized that Dr. Munilal's question was on the minds of every citizen who, in the midst of the desperate search for Andrea Barrett, had been shocked to discover the abysmal state of a critical crime-fighting resource established at great expense to taxpayers. At this moment, when the population has set aside its differences to confront violence against women and criminality in general, the government is proving unable to rise to the requirement for leadership that is reassuring, caring, and competent. And I think that put it succinctly of the arrogance and the incompetence and the failure of Minister Stuart Young when it comes to the management of the criminal justice apparatus and the national security apparatus of this country. He has failed as a Minister of National Security. And I think this morning we renew our call for Minister Stuart Young to go. He must resign. He's incompetent. We have no confidence in Minister Stuart Young. Imagine Minister Young knew since September 2018 when it was revealed in the Parliament that those cameras were not working, that he did absolutely nothing from 2018 to present. We have heard about negotiations of contract. Why it is that these things are taking so long? Why it is that we're hearing about interference with respect to the procurement system of these cameras? Minister Young must do his job and ensure that these cameras are working to protect the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. Those cameras will aid in the fight against crime. It is amazing, members of the media, it is amazing how quickly that this government can pass laws to fine someone $1,000 for not wearing a face mask, or how quickly that they can pass laws to emasculate the Procurement Act, or for tint or demerit system, but they cannot find the time to pass laws for the enforcement of the death penalty for non-lethal weapons like pepper spray to protect our women of Trinidad and Tobago. Those are the things that the government should be concerned about. But what the cabinet of this country is interested in is business. They are interested in government rather than governance in this country. That is why you have so many recusals of ministers having to recuse themselves from the cabinet. They are only interested in business of themselves and not the people of Trinidad and Tobago. That is what they are interested in. And then you will hear them with another narrative, a false and fake narrative, that the United National Congress does not support crime-fighting legislation. Well, let me put this on the public record, that the United National Congress has supported the government in the Parliament, and the government has failed to do their jobs because the laws have become ineffective due to their non-implementation, non-enforcement, and their incompetence and mismanagement of the system. The Bail, Access to Bail Amendment, Bill 2017, we made extensive amendments. Miscellaneous Provisions Bill of 2017 that deals with mutual assistance in criminal matters, procedure of crime, financial intelligence, customs and exchange. We made extensive amendments. Miscellaneous Provisions, Supreme Court of Judicature and Children Bill 2018 Act made extensive amendments. Payment to the Court Bill made extensive amendments. The Administration of Justice Indictable Proceedings Amendment Number 2 Bill 2019, extensive amendments we made. Administration of Justice Indictable Amendment Bill 2018, again we made extensive amendments. The Firearms Bill 2019, the opposition support was not needed, but we still supported the bill. The Civil Asset Recovery and Management on Unexplained Wealth Bill 2019, the opposition supported that bill, although our support was not needed. When it comes to special majority bills, we supported the government on FATCA in 2016. We supported them on the Anti-Gang Bill in 2018. We supported them on the Insurance Act in 2016, the Anti-Terrorism Amendment Act in 2018, the Licensing Committee Validation Act of 2018, the Bail Amendment Bill of 2017, sorry. Then you have where the PNM, during the period of 2010 to 2015, when bills were brought to fight crime by the People's Partnership Government, which would have borne some result today if those bills were passed, they have not supported it. So that is what we also need to inform the population of. When the Constitutional Amendment Capital Offences Bill of 2011 was brought, that was voted against by the PNM, the Miscellaneous Provisions Remand Bill 2010. They voted against that. They voted against the Administration of Justice DNA Bill. They voted against the Administration of Justice Electronic Monitoring Bill. They voted against the Bail Bill of 2013, you know. They voted against the Bail Bill of 2013. They voted against the Miscellaneous Provisions Defense and Police Complaints Bill of 2013. They voted against the Miscellaneous Provisions Administration of Bill 2014. So when they come with their false and fake narrative that the UNC is objecting, we are not objecting to fighting crime in this country. We are committed to ensuring that criminals are put behind bars in this country. What we are fighting for is for the government to pass good law, but at the same time to fix the broken system. That is what we are fighting for in the United National Congress. We are fighting to ensure that persons like Ashanti Riley and Andrea Barrett and others who have gone missing or who have been murdered, that they are the ones who get justice in Trinidad and Tobago. So I thank you, members of the media, and I now pass you on to my colleague, Senator David Naked.
In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, first of all, on behalf of the UNC and all law-abiding citizens, we would like to express our sincerest condolences to all those women, all those girls, all those young boys who have lost their lives. I think it would be remiss of us to forget all those in the past, some of them who MP Saddam Hussein has mentioned, I think in these somber circumstances, I think it becomes even more necessary to have a conversation about where we are as a country, where we are as a people. I know it might be in these times especially a bit tedious to hear MP Saddam talking about bills and bills and bills. I know that could be a bit difficult, but it's very, very necessary because we need to state our position. Our position as UNC is one of principle. As far as the bail amendment bill is concerned, evidence amendment bill. So we'd like to make it lucidly clear to the public that we are no apologists for criminals. But in these times when people tend to inflame rhetoric to serve their purpose, they tend to have a lot of hyperbole in order to feed on the emotions of our citizens. I think it becomes even clearer that someone like a technician like MP Saddam states exactly where we are, and that he has so done. Now, I will deal with crime as it is in Trinidad and Tobago, as one who is close to the ground, one who has traversed the East-West corridor and, in fact, came from the East-West corridor, where in truth and in fact, a lot of our crime takes place. A lot of these communities that have been neglected. I think it's important for us to know at this point in time that we of the UNC are of the opinion that Trinidad should not be engrossed, involved, part of being a penal colony. And when you listen to Father Sharawi, Stuart Young, Keith Rowley, this is where they intend to take us. And we have to be the adults in the room. We know people are hurting, people are heart-stricken. I was on the ground yesterday, and that needs to be noted. We were on the ground and we saw the emotions of the people, but at that point in time, this is where, when cometh the hour, cometh the men, cometh the women, who will stand up and say, yes, we are heartbroken, but we need to be sober in every exercise that we take, in every decision that we take. It must not be one of emotion. So although we very much are in compatibility with our citizens, we have to be the ones that says, this is the situation, and we must look at crime, not in isolation, but as an ecosystem. And it comes back to our communities. It comes back to what have we done with our communities. And we have to be true to ourselves, and I've always stressed that even before I entered politics. We have to take a realistic assessment of where our communities are. Who destroyed our communities? Who destroyed family lives in our black communities, black and brown communities? Were they given enough opportunities? And I'll make it even more clear to you, and as an example, you cannot hold someone to account when you have not given them the tools to hold him to account. You cannot ask someone not to commit crime, and as I said before, this is no apology for any of our criminals. But you have to give them the opportunities before they enter the system. And this is what this PNM government, they have failed to do. And I give you an example. Minister Stuart Young, as Minister of National Security, has he integrated his national security portfolio with, for example, with the Ministry of Social Development? Has he integrated it with the Ministry of Sport to provide opportunities? Has he integrated it with other ministries that perhaps serve the interests of the disadvantaged communities? And this is not only my observation. These are the observations of a lot of the middle class, a lot of the upper class people who want real change. Don't think when David Naked speaks to you, or Saddam Hussein speaks to you, or our political leader speaks to you, that we speak for one segment of the population. We speak to you on behalf of all citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. And people are very much and acutely aware that this present government, this government of the day, they have failed in providing the necessary opportunities to keep people out of that system, that penal system, where prisoners, we have a big contracts awarded for prisoners on time, but there is no justice on time. So when our political leader says, we demand swift justice, there's a lot of layers to that statement. Swift justice means what? That things, as MP Saddam Hussein alluded to, there must be proper court representation, there must be proper evidence brought, everything must be working, cameras must be up and going. But no, we don't have that. But we have the grand posturing of a Forrest Gump. I call him Forrest Gump because he keeps running out of cabinet. So he keeps fit like that, doesn't need to go to the gym. So he's run, Forrest run. He runs out of cabinet, in comes Stuart Young. Stuart Young runs out of cabinet, all in the interest of their business interests, family, friends, financiers. And that cannot be the situation. We have to have, in this country, an honest conversation. So let's begin it. Let's begin it. Where are we as a people? Have we, in truth and in fact, amidst our sorrow, amidst the emotion, have we looked and seen the opportunities that we have afforded to the people in the communities that we want to now label them monsters? Everywhere, monsters. Creatures, monsters. Who does that serve? Who does that narrative serve? Do we intend to move forward as a people, as a country, one people, as we so like to proclaim to the outside world? Or do we want to have a subculture of people? That's what you're saying. When you refer to people as monsters, so arrogantly, so vociferously, why not be so vociferous in asking for proper CCTV cameras? Why aren't you so vociferous in prosecuting the case of having 39 workers being brought in to replace possibly 39 workers at Blue Waters? All these things are related. Nothing happens in isolation, especially crime. And I'll tell you something more. Nobody wakes up one morning and says, I want to be a criminal. People wake up wanting to go to work. My mother came from an area, Lavantil, Picton Road. My uncle Rudolph Charles. Where in that time, you'd see people getting up, dressing properly, getting ready to go to work, proud of their status. What have we done? What has Fitzgerald Hines done? That man who pretends to be the Minister of Youth and Youth Development. What has he done? What has he brought new to the table that we can say he has offered a chance for the youth, instead of posturing and talking about, I was looking for the piper in him and so forth and so on. These people have no narrative, and language is important. Language is indeed what we in authority, what we as politicians, we need to use, and this is what is necessary now. So we understand the tone of the country, but we must be the adults in the room. We, the opposition UNC, we must be the ones to say, yes, it's a tragedy, but these tragedies in truth and in fact have been going on for the last 30, 40 years. And I spoke personally with a former DMO. I myself have followed the case of Akil Chambers. Where has that gone? So I think in the course of our conversation, although we bring statistics to the fore, and so it's more than that. It's more than that. And I think that's where Faris Al-Rawi and Stuart Young and Rowley, they have failed miserably the people of Trinidad and Tobago. For example, we've had P&M governments from Eric Williams, who stressed the importance of school books. He stressed that. Our future is in the book bags of the children. We've had Basdio Pandey, dollar for dollar. We've had Patrick Manning, gate, opening gate. Kamla Prasad Bisasa, expanding gate. And we have Rowley, closing gate. That says it all right there. That shows you where the priority of a man like Keith Rowley is. His interest is not education, which can foster opportunity, foster possibilities of someone moving from out of poverty into a middle-class life. That is not his concern. He said that. I will make the rich richer, and you all take the dregs. He has said that, and he says that brazenly. So when our opposition leader of the country makes a statement or asks a question of Keith Rowley, he can say with all arrogance, what's she drinking now? And the Guardian newspaper, especially Guardian newspaper, they will not come and say, look at how this example of a man treats the premier positioned leader of the country, who is a woman. That has an effect on the psyche of our men, our young men, and we cannot be dismissive of that. That behavior by him and by others is unacceptable. I look at the character of Stuart Young. Dr. Moonilal questioned him in the parliament. Questioning in the parliament, a question that concerns all citizens. What about the cameras? Listen to his answer. I think one of the newspapers alluded to that. Listen to his answer. It showed the immaturity. It showed a man who has no all-round education. It shows a man who's not fit for purpose of being Minister of National Security. When will we have these cameras? As soon as possible. But it's the belligerent ways in which he answers questions that are pertinent to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And we must not accept that. So when we have the Guardian putting up this, you blaming the UNC. When we have them in their editorial, where was this editorial before? When they talk about procurement. When was it before questioning unexplained wealth by some of our country? When was it before talking about the 39 workers brought in? All of it is related. It's an integration of all systems that provides opportunities for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. We can't let people get away with calling people monsters and creatures. Yes, criminals who create mischief. Criminals, convicted criminals who rape and murder a woman. Yes, they are monsters. Yes, they are creatures. But that should not be the narrative, broad-based for all our country. I'll tell you why. And I'll bring the reality home to you. I train every morning with boys from Sharford Court from Mova, from Beetham, come and train with me every morning. And they feel, when they hear those words, beasts and creatures and monsters, and these are hardworking young black men and brown men, they feel under attack. They feel under attack. And you know yourself, if you close your eyes and you hear Harari and they so nonchalantly talk about monsters and creatures, what is the first image that comes to your mind? You don't think about Goodwood Park and Bayshore. Be honest, you think about where? The East-West Corridor, Lavantil, Beetham, Scorpion, Bagatelle. True? Is that what we want? How do we progress from that then? That's a slope that we do not come back from. So it's up to us, the people in authority, to set the narrative from now, to ask the hard questions, and that is what we have done in the UNC. Our opposition leader lambasted and scandalized what she drinking now, who she thinks she is, delusional. No, it was said quite well and succinctly today in the newspapers. Stuart Young is the delusional one. Because if he's deluded, if he thinks he has done anything to help the security of this nation, an abject failure on all counts. His colleagues came into Parliament and could not one time mention anything concretely he has done to help the security of this country. Talk about he in karate class, he good looking. I mean, how much more ludicrous can we get? So I think we, as the people, citizens, right-thinking citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, we commiserate with the victims. We express our condolences, but we, the opposition, must take the stance that we have to be the sober ones in the room. We have to be the ones to safeguard all of our people. And I would like the Commissioner of Police, in his hard efforts to solve crime, to be as vociferous as he is in finding out exactly what happened to all those suspects under police custody. That is also part, because the killing, that horrific killing of Andrea Barrett, of Ashanti Riley, of Akil Chambers, while a danger to our society, the bigger danger to our democracy is when people are killed in police custody. When people are lost in the system for 10, 15 years in the remand yard. When people are not allowed opportunities, education taken away, no access to healthcare. That is a danger to our democracy. And that is of paramount importance to all citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you all for coming. I hope you all accept and listen to the balanced view that the UNC portrays, portends, and will push and keep pushing in the future. I thank you all.
Any questions?
I just have two. So you would have mentioned, you told us certain things in relation to the evidence bill, such as the DNA part and the CCTV camera.
No.
But you mentioned on the evidence bill that allows for anonymous witnesses to come forward. Do you not think that in the case of the country that we live, where witnesses are intimidated and even killed, that it's an important part in terms of crime fighting mechanism?
All right. To answer your question, anonymous witnesses is not part of this particular piece of legislation, all right? So let me just put that on the record. Sorry. So it's not part of this bill. The second response I would have for you is that under the current Evidence Act, when I served as a prosecutor at the DPP's office, there is a provision where if a witness feels vulnerable, they can in fact be giving evidence through a video link, or they may give evidence behind screens. That is something within the inherent jurisdiction of the court. So that currently exists in the court system. What we have to measure that against is that it takes sometimes a witness 15 years to testify. This bill will seek to protect the witness only on the day of the trial. What happens to the witness for the past 15 years? So those are things that the government needs to fix. They need reform to the Justice Protection Act for the Witness Protection Program. and what happens to that person after they give the evidence. What protection is the state going to offer? This bill doesn't address that.
And in relation to the bail bill that
Yes.
allows for the holding of a person who committed, it was I think a repeated offense, a firearm offense and so
No,
forth.
it's not repeated. So they can deny a person bail for a first offense.
Right, but the city commissioner, and I believe the attorney general did explain that, saying that the one, the purpose of the denial of bail for 120 days is because sometimes when that person is granted bail, they're allowed to go and tamper with evidence that otherwise police may have gathered, the prosecutor may have had it. And once you tamper with that, it therefore doesn't give you that chance to even have the evidence or gather the evidence to be able to convict such a person. What's your response?
Before you charge someone, you should have the evidence in order to start the matter, because you must have a level of evidence prior to laying a charge. So for them to say that you need that time to gather evidence is completely wrong and false. What we are fighting for on this side is not to jail somebody temporarily for 120 days. We are fighting for them to be convicted in 120 days.
Right, but the gathering of evidence may be a process. You may have part of the evidence, but you need to gather further evidence. Don't you think that if a person is allowed to be granted bail, that they can then tamper with that? Let's say it's a ring, let's say it's anything,
Okay.
it's more than...
So let me tell you, at that stage where the charge is laid, most of the statements of the eyewitness evidence should have been given at that stage. The identification exercises should have been completed. The evidence that they normally wait for is evidence such as forensic testing, such as the ballistic reports. You wait for the post-mortem reports. Those are things that someone may not be able to tamper with because they are found in the custody of the state. And if you have a DNA system or a forensic system that takes 15 years to analyze samples, then something is definitely wrong with the system. And we are suggesting that this bill does not address that. It deals with the management of the system, the criminal justice system. Okay. Thank you very much for joining us. Oh, sorry. Yes.
My first question is that Commissioner City was called for more offenses to be non-bailable.
Yes.
So what's your position on this point?
Until we see the legislation before us, I think the party will have to take a party position and caucus on that issue. As is now, there is no particular piece of legislation before us to consider.
You spoke about how the state is seeking to make a collection of evidence and building up cases more complex with this bill.
Yes.
Isn't that a good thing?
Oh.
In that, we should also be asking that when it's more complex, or I would think that if it's more complex, that means it's more layers of evidence being brought against the person being charged, as opposed to whatever appears now.
Okay, maybe let me just clear that up with you, right? When I mentioned that it adds a complexity in terms of this particular bill, it means that it increases the amount of things that an investigating officer is required to do. For example, in the collection of evidence, extra forms. So those are things that without the proper training, you can trip up into the investigation, and those evidence can in fact be excluded if you don't follow particular procedures. So currently we have the police standing orders, you have the judge's rules, and it's a normal practice in court that sometimes the defense counsel will take objection because the police did not follow through properly with the procedures that are outlined. This bill adds an extra layer of procedures and guidelines that has to be complied with. And if it's not complied, one can simply suggest, well, the police did not act in accordance with the law, and that evidence, in fact, will be excluded, and an entire case can, in fact, avalanche.
So shouldn't we then be pushing, in addition to the additional layers of complexity, to have proper training for the police?
Agreed.
To have investigators who have proven that they can bring cases to court and be convicted, be promoted and trained, as opposed to saying, yeah, let's just leave it as it is?
Well, what we should have right now is a proper resourcing of the system first, because it's very simple. if the police stations don't have copy papers, and if they don't have the resources, they don't have cameras, they don't have the necessary equipment required for them to do the work, this bill will not work. This bill requires a overhaul of the police, the administration of justice and the police service in order for it to properly work. It also needs an overhaul of the court system, which we currently don't have. We still have magistrate courts in this country where they are operating on a shift system. In San Fernando, that is the constituency of the Attorney General. You have the Mayoral Court, the Rio Claro Court. And if we don't have proper infrastructure, this bill will never work in Trinidad and Tobago. You need to fix the system. We have enough laws, as I said. We have the laws to admit the evidence. We have the laws to collect the evidence, but we don't have the laws. We don't have the procedures to enforce the laws in Trinidad and Tobago. And that goes back to the mismanagement and the incompetence of the present administration.
Just to add to what you said, I think it's appropriate that you mentioned about the TTPS. And I think even the Commissioner of Police has called for more resources. And that speaks to your question. Better training of the TTPS will certainly help in expediting cases. And I know a lot have been made of a lot of the police not coming to court to finish matters and letting things go away because of that. And I think that's what MP Saddam Hussein alluded to, that we must have those resources. And Stuart Young, let's be honest, he was the Minister of National Security, and the budget for the TTPS has been cut. And I think that focus needs to be taken on that. So when we have these kind of inanities in The Guardian, and so talking about everybody's responsible, but isn't the media, especially people like The Guardian, responsible also for questioning these things? I mean, the cameras, that's important. Why wasn't that made an issue? Why hasn't Stuart Young done something if he knew about it? And he's the one who first knew about it. Why hasn't he done something? So he was home in his bed, happy, under 24-hour protection and security, and knowing full well that cameras, 800 cameras, were not working in this country, placing the Commissioner of Police in a very, very difficult situation. So I think all of this needs to be looked at holistically. It must not be the blame game. We must not have the kind of demagoguery that has been shown in the last few days by Farish Al-Rawi and this PNM government, where they are playing on the emotions of the people. We have to stay away from that demagoguery. We have to deal with it in a very sober manner.
Okay, and my final question is, you spoke about how you refer to as monsters and criminals that are sensitive young men. Do you think that men need to be talking to men and stop violence against women, not just protecting women, but changing the behavior of the people who are lying because,
Yes, it's a very valid point, and it comes back to what I stated before about the importance of community. The family life, especially in a lot of these disadvantaged communities, is broken. We have to admit that. It is broken. You know, a lot of single mother homes, and we have to realize the impact of that. When a young man hears advice from a mentor, a father figure, it's a big difference than hearing it from a mother. And we have to admit that. We have to know that. You know, we're placing too much stress on our women. And in order to build back the communities, the government comes in. That's the purpose of a government. The purpose of government is to lift up society when it falls, not to add in the failure of the society. And this is what the PNM government has done. They have taken away education. They have taken away sport. They have taken away social services. You know, so instead of having a national training service program, for example, where we can have youths with more civic consciousness, civic-minded towards national values, what we would expect. What we have? CPEP. Expansion of CPEP. You understand? So we do not give our young men and women the value system that could possibly push them onto a foot of life. Because we know why this PNM government does that, and it's to keep their vote banks. And as MP Saddam Hussein said, it's all about government for them, not about governance. And the people now, they are asking for governance. although they are right now, we are in a wreck, we are emotionally vulnerable, we are sad, they have to look to us, those in authority, those elected, appointed, for that kind of leadership. And you're not going to find it from belligerent people like Farish Alwari and Stuart Young and Rowley, just posturing and balancing all over the place. We have to deal with serious questions and have that conversation that we are having right now.
Not just on a government level, but I don't mentor young men to say, that we should be doing.
Well, that's what I mentioned before. The people I coach, I train with every morning and so, come from disadvantaged communities, and that's the purpose of what I'm doing. It's a pity that we're in COVID times, else I would have at least 50 people every morning. And the purpose of that is to teach life lessons, and that is the importance of sport. Football, I will tell you, football does precisely that. Sport does precisely that at all levels. So when you have incompetency from a minister like Shamfa Kajo, who knows nothing, she has not had any initiative or planned or anything, especially in a time like this, where she should have things in place for when COVID is lifted, to push through development programs in the community. It's very important. We need to have people who are not intellectually bankrupt like what we have now. They have no ideas. They have not built a school in 6 years. What are you doing? While we have people getting $23 million in rent and all. I mean, this is a morally bankrupt government. And we need to call it, in spite of our sadness, in spite of our tragedy, we need to call it for what it is. This is a government that needs to go. So when we call on Minister Stuart Young to go, we are basically talking about somebody who does everything else but his portfolio, all up in Ministry of Energy business, but can't pay attention to what is important, national security. Abject failure. Welcome. Thanks for coming, and we look forward to having these further conversations.
Thank you very much.